I'll write the questions up here.
Okay, I have them on my laptop too.
Well, I'm talking about questions from the audience.
All right, guys, you're going to be live in a minute, okay?
Hello. So I want to welcome everyone to the Talk on Race, Youthful Minds. We are starting with our land acknowledgement. So the Lower Cape Fear YWCA serves the people located within the Lower Cape Fear region. This land once thrived with life from indigenous people, known today as the Cape Fear Indians and the Wakama Siouan Indian people, living in established settlements along the Cape Fear River and Lake Wakama. Along with many other established sites in the region, we need to protect and honor the history of these places. Indigenous people are not relics of the past. They are still here continuing to demonstrate their talents and gifts amidst a backdrop of ongoing colonialism and oppression. They are worth celebrating. We hope our land acknowledgement statement will inspire others to stand with us in solidarity with Native nations. So first, I would like us all to introduce ourselves as panelists. So first, I am the facilitator. My name is Bethany Henry. I am 21 years old. I'm from Wilmington, North Carolina, and I attend Virginia State University, and I play volleyball there. I'm a junior. So Mikala, you want to go ahead next?
Sure. So I'm Mikala Parnell. I'm a sophomore, class of 2023 at Princeton University. I'm also from Wilmington, and I'm 19 years old.
Hi, everyone. My name's Leah Avant. I am a senior here at UNCW. I'm born and raised here in Wilmington. And yeah, I'm really passionate about social work. That's what I'm about to get my BSW in. And yeah. So.
Hi, my name is Janae. I was born and raised in Wilmington, North Carolina. I'm a sophomore at Stanford University in Palo Alto, California, studying management science and engineering with a minor in education, and I'm really excited to be here.
Hi, my name is Chey Farrar. I am a senior at Cary High School. I think I'm one of the only high schoolers on this panelist, and I am 17 years old, and I'm very excited to be here and share my thoughts. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Brealyn Freeman. I am 12 years old and I attend Holly Shelter Middle School, and I'm really excited to be here.
All right, so let's get started. So we want to start by welcoming our viewers. Thank you for all being here today, and we hope that this talk will start a conversation and have everyone, give everyone a little insight to what the youthful minds are thinking right now. So let's first talk about how has virtual school been like this semester? Like, how do you feel that this is different from the prior semesters, and what are you doing to make sure that you still are able to achieve your goals and do well in your classes? Janae.
Sure. I think from a college perspective, I think the biggest difference has been working in isolation and how hard that is. I think typically, like in person in college, you have a problem set that you get assigned for the week, and you sort of have a group that you can work in person with via your dorm or study groups and stuff. And that really is essential for getting through a class and sort of keeping your morale throughout the semester as well. But with virtual learning, you don't have that in-person connection. You don't have students that you can go to and ask questions in person. And so I think the lack of human connection really influenced learning for me personally. I think this semester felt more isolated than normal, but I got through it. And I think all of us did in some way.
Yeah, just to add on to that as well, I think that because it is more isolating and because obviously the school is very spread out all across the country, there's different time zones and people are just all in different places. It's really hard to, I think, have a gauge of how well other people are doing or what it is other people are doing in your school and in your classes. So I think one of the strategies that I found myself having to lean into more to do well in my classes is that I really had to work on engaging with the professors more and going to see them, going to their office hours or sending them emails, asking questions because I didn't have that, I guess, safety net of students to talk to about my classes.
Yeah, just to piggyback off of what both Janae and Mikala both said, for me personally, I think the hardest part is kind of missing that human connection of just having the camaraderie of even professors and your fellow classmates. I found it very difficult if I did have an issue, like trying to reach out to a professor who I've never met, like face to face, was almost like an awkward feeling because I was just, you don't really know me. You've just seen me on Zoom or, talking through emails. So kind of having to push towards and through that awkwardness was probably the most challenging aspect for me. And also trying to get a feel for everyone's like emotional and mental state because we are in such a, uncertain time in our world right now. I think that, when you're looking at someone on Zoom or when, a lot of times people don't even have their cameras on, sometimes it's, hard to get a feel for how your friends are doing, how your professors are doing, how everyone's doing as well. So.
Yeah, well, it's real awkward, isn't it? Because especially being like one of the quiet people in classes, like I usually wouldn't like actually go up and ask a question until I was actually like alone with the teacher because I would feel really awkward. So not being able to have that certain outlet and aspect of just everybody's actually going through the same thing, but you can't tell because people are being like so quiet and so silent. It's very like disconcerting if that's the right word. It's very disconcerting because you kind of just feel like you're alone most of the time when you're actually not.
Yeah, I think the most challenging part is like the Zooms because I go on Monday and Tuesday. And so most of the kids that are home on Monday and Tuesday, they don't go to the Zooms. So most of the time when I'm home, they have to reteach what we already learned in class.
I think one thing to add is like some positives from the experience. I feel like we've learned ways to make education better and more accessible. So for example, office hours in college, which are sort of like teachers after school hours in high school, typically are like really cramped in a small classroom with lots of students crowding around this one teacher when I was at campus, and now they're online. And our office hours, at least in my department for my major, were recorded, and that was incredibly helpful because typically lectures were recorded and office hours were recorded, so you could go back and relearn concepts that you didn't catch in class, and that's not usually something you can do when you're just listening and trying to write as fast as you can in organic chemistry or calculus or something. So that was really helpful. And I finished my computer science requirements in the spring last year, and we sort of have this huge hub on campus where you get help with computer science, and we were able to do it virtually and share our screen, and that was so much easier and convenient for students because usually office hours boils down to how many people can just fit in the room. So being able to record those sessions, I think, is something we should continue doing if we can, even when we are in person.
Yeah, I agree. And I wanted to add on that too, that I think something that's really been fruitful or been helpful during this time is the way that they've been able to, again, like make these things more accessible, but also for people who maybe have disabilities or difficulty with focusing or anything like that, like having the recorded lecture means that they're not missing out on things and that they can go back and re-listen or even slow down the pace of the video or different things like that. So my professors offering that as an option, I think is something that would be worthwhile to continue into even on-campus learning, because there's always like challenges or potential difficulties that you don't know that students have. So just offering that as an option has been really helpful for people.
Absolutely. I think something else that's a positive is, a lot of students unfortunately have been diagnosed with COVID or have a loved one who's been diagnosed with COVID who they have to take care of. And it's been very beneficial for people that I know that have been in similar situations, that the lectures and lessons are recorded, so they don't feel like they're missing a full lecture, because usually, if you miss a class, you miss a class. There's not much you can do unless you borrow someone's notes or whatever. So I think it's been very beneficial, for people who have been in that circumstance as well, to be able to go back and, feel like they can keep up with their class if they have to take care of themselves or someone they love. So
Going off of what Leah said, I wanted to add that also with students not knowing people's backgrounds and what their home lives are like, some students are forced to work. So, and you can't, every employer is not so lenient with schedule making. And so that is also a very beneficial thing to have recorded lectures or recorded notes or just whatever the teacher does, to be able to still be able to get that work and take notes or contact someone in the class like, hey, you were there, anything else besides what was given in the notes. Or I think that's very beneficial, and a lot of teachers are implementing those things, and or at least from my experience, because they see that, the difference, that they realize that it is difficult for us as well. But not every professor is that understanding. So I think that's another thing that I do agree with what everyone has spoken on. So Brealyn, with you being in middle school, would you mind speaking on how it is having the A-Day, B-Day schedule, or however that works?
Okay, so it's not as difficult as it seems. Like, we're 6 feet apart all the time, and we have our mask on, and I don't know, it's like difficult because there's kids you don't know, and then there's kids that attend to Zooms on Thursday and Fridays, but don't attend it. Like, they attend Zooms on Thursday and Friday and don't catch up. So when they get to school on Monday and Tuesday, they don't really know what we're talking about. So it's more difficult for them to understand what we're doing in class.
Gotcha. So I want to ask all of you, how are you learning? So like, not just how are you learning, but are you learning? So like, how has this been a difference for you as far as what you're actually being able to take in?
It's actually like kind of difficult, especially with being such an in-person learner and having going to straight just virtual, because I'm virtual 100% all the time. I can't even go back to school. So just hearing people talk and not actually be able to ask certain questions because you just can't see what's on everybody's minds, like if they're asking the same questions as you, it's real difficult because it's mostly just PowerPoints, like not lectures for me. It's mostly just PowerPoint. So I'm just taking notes and then I'm just doing assignments. And I'm like, is this actually learning or am I memorizing?
that's a super, super good point, Chey. I kind of fall into the same boat a little bit, because right now I feel like, especially for me, like graduation deadlines and all of that crazy stuff too, it's very much like, okay, I have to get it done. I have to get it done. I have to get it done. And, about probably mid-October, I would say I kind of sat back and I was just like, what am I doing? Like, I just go, like, I feel like I'm almost going through the motions with things. And so from that point on, I really tried to dig deep into what I was trying to learn and what I was being taught. And, and I do think that there's always a barrier of some sort when you're trying to learn over technology, even before, all of this happened. but I definitely had to kind of give myself a reality check for sure, because just like you, Shay, I was definitely just like going by trying to get assignments done so I can get a grade for them. There wasn't a true like, okay, how can I sit here and really benefit from this, something that I'll remember for years to come. So
One thing that I appreciated, I don't know if this will continue into my next quarter, but my first quarter at Stanford, we didn't have exams. And that was really nice because I feel like typically with in-class grading, you sort of have 2 days that make up your entire grade in addition to your finals. So one test, it's like 25% of your grade, another it's 25% of your grade, and your finals also really heavily weighted. So I felt like I was graded on like problem sets, and it was maybe like a more equal grading system in my opinion, or I didn't have these intense, really pressure like final days. But I know like that was one of my school, like I don't think that's every school. I know a lot of schools had finals periods. I would also say I think like recorded lectures actually helped me learn a bit deeper. I think in classes in person, at least my freshman year, if I didn't understand something in class, I had to ask in the moment while also trying to take notes. And then I had to look back at my notes that I'd taken in class, and I sort of had no like recorded lecture to reference. But if I didn't understand something, I could always go and watch a recorded section or recorded office hours or the recorded lecture from the professor. And I thought that was incredibly helpful. So I also think that helped me learn on a deeper level than I would have in person, where you're sort of just trying to keep up with what the professor's writing instead of actually like understanding and sort of walking away from class like I need to soak in everything I just learned to make sure it makes sense.
Mikala, did you want to add anything?
Sure. Yeah. I was gonna say, well, my school is one of those ones that still has exams. So I definitely kind of felt this pressure to like, you're just like producing all of these things to turn in, as opposed to like really trying to learn the content. But I think it's been kind of a double-edged sword, I guess. In one sense, it's like, it feels like also another thing that's I guess kind of strange is like you're always with your notes or your computer, so it's like you can just look things up like as you go, as opposed to like usually it's like you're in class at one point and then once class is over then you can go and look up things you didn't understand, and now you can kind of do stuff in the moment, which can help learning, or it can mean that you end up being like distracted on your phone the whole class. So it definitely depends. But I also think that because I haven't had as much interaction with my peers, I've had to speak a lot more with like my professors and schedule times to talk to them, send them emails. And that's actually been, I think, helpful for me because like Janae said before, I probably wouldn't in my freshman year, like I definitely wouldn't have tried to like see what my teacher, like I don't want to show my teacher that I didn't understand. But reaching out to them because they already have the answers, like they came up with this thing they already know, has been really helpful for me to kind of, I guess, internalize what it is that they're trying to teach me.
Alrighty. So our next subject is we're going to be talking about voting. Now we're not getting into who voted for who or anything like that, but those of you that are 18, would you like to speak on how that voting process went for you?
Sure. So I'm 21 now, but this is technically my first round of being able to vote because I missed the cutoff in 2016. So for me, it was brand new. Everything, I'd never been to one, like a voting site or anything like that. So I'm not sure why my background keeps messing up, but I mean it was very calm. I don't know why I had this like preconceived notion that like everybody was going to be like stampeding through the door to try to vote, but like everybody just waited calmly in line and waited their turn, and we went up and I did early voting. So there wasn't a computer, it was just like a paper ballot, and I voted and I left, and that was it. It was almost kind of like a not a letdown, but I was like, oh, that's it, like that's all I get to do. So but I mean it was very easy, everybody knew where to go and what to do, and I felt very calm, which was a very positive for me for sure.
Yeah, I agree that I think it was a little more anticlimactic than I expected. I think there's a lot of build up to the voting part because it was my first time voting as well. And like I was getting all of these phone calls because I was registered to vote, but I had never actually voted in an election before. So I was getting all these calls and emails and everyone wanted to know if I was voting and like if I knew how and all of these things. But then I also early voted and like when I got there, it was very calm, like Leah said, and I essentially just like put my ballot in and that was it. But I do think that it was interesting to like actually get to be a part of like the voting process because obviously you see it and you can like form your own opinions, but you don't really get to express those opinions as much until you're able to vote. So I did, I guess, enjoy the kind of experience of being able to put in my own say in the voting process.
I too was a first-time voter in this last election. I went to vote with my family, so that was really exciting. I think in addition to what Mikala and Leah said, and it was calm when I went to vote as well, but I also think like something that was on my mind was like the amount of people that died and protested for me to have a right as a Black woman to vote, and that was really with me when I was voting. Thinking about the people in my family line who came before me who couldn't do that, or how many people worked so hard that I would have that right. So that's always something that I consider. And I also think that a lot of the policies in America affect young people, but they don't really get a say until they're 18. So it almost sort of felt relieving that I could finally vote and have a say in the things that were going to affect my daily life.
Yeah,
So-
I definitely agree. Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, you're good. Go ahead, Leah.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with both of you, Mikala and Janae. It as I guess like you have this idea like when you're not allowed to vote that it's going to be this huge thing, and even though like the actual act of it wasn't, what we all did to contribute to the like bettering of our country is awesome. So thinking about that, like almost like post voting, mine didn't really hit me until like afterwards, and I was like, wow, like I just voted, so that was pretty cool.
I think that the turnout in our generation, our age group was phenomenal. This year, I too am a first time voter. So I found it very like, I don't know, I didn't really get excited. I don't know, with all the controversy around the election, I wasn't super excited. I don't know, I was super kind of anxious at the time. But I knew I was like, okay, well, at least I can do my part to vote, because I feel like if you don't vote and you can vote, then you don't really get a say in anything that happens after, because it's just kind of like, to me, it's like you have that right. And like Janae said, that like people worked hard for us, like all of us are women on this call right now, worked hard for women to get the chance to vote. And then a Black woman or minority woman at that, like just being that, I feel like I hold that weight on my back as far as making sure that I use my voice for whatever opinion that is. But Chey and Brealyn, I do want to ask y'all, what are you excited to vote? Like I know y'all have, well, Brealyn especially have a couple of years, but are you excited?
Go ahead.
Okay. I'm excited to vote, I guess. I don't know. It's just, I don't know. It's just, yeah. I don't really know, because I'm excited, but it doesn't really, it makes me anxious sometimes. Like thinking about that I have like the right to vote like in a couple years.
I'm actually not that excited, to be honest, because I just feel like you never know what's actually going to happen by the time where you get to the point where you can vote. So much happens in the span of those years, like so many tiny details that lead to everything and that choice. And especially just this year with 2020 being the way it was, it's really just brought out like some sort of pessimistic quality in everybody. So until like I get to that point, I don't think I'll ever be excited to vote. I think I'll be just more anxious to see like what actually is going to happen.
So Janae, Mikala, and Leah, y'all all, well, actually, I don't know if Janae mentioned it as well, but y'all all mentioned that you were kind of surprised at how calm the whole voting environment was. What made you feel a little that it was going to be more exciting?
I think, sorry. Okay. So I think on TV, like, okay, obviously on TV, the media reports that there's really long lines because that's newsworthy. Like when you go to a polling station and the lines are like all the way like down the street, turn left, they're still going. Like that's really exciting because there's like high voter turnout and it obviously means that something's going on where people really want to vote. And for me, it took like 20 minutes. So I think like that was sort of the like anticlimactic part. Now I'm glad it took 20 minutes. It was very easy, smooth, quick, which is another reason why you should go vote, not only in national elections, but local and state elections as well. But like that was sort of like it for me. Like I don't know if I was expecting a wait time or just like more people there, but like I think we went to go vote early as well. And so there weren't that many people.
Yeah, for me, pretty much the same thing. I think it might have been Janae who said they went with their family. Yeah, so I did as well. I went with my parents. And then we went and had lunch afterwards. It was like a little family outing. I don't know, we got there, we were like second in line and we stood there and I guess, and my parents, when we were driving there, had kind of like prepared me, I guess. And they were like, sometimes there will be protesters out there who are going to try to persuade you to vote one way or the other. Like, try not to listen to them. Don't, just don't pay them any mind, whatever. And there was none of that. Everybody was just like, nobody was out there. And so I think I was just like, oh, like, okay, and when I went in, it was just a few volunteers and everybody was super, socially distant. And I don't know, I guess I just had like maybe even like an anxiousness, I guess, with everything that's going on in the world too, that it was just going to be such like a, and it wasn't. It was very, very calm. So.
Yeah, I guess what I was most concerned about, well, I was two things I was concerned about. One, I was most concerned about is like, I guess COVID wise, like whether people were going to be doing what they were supposed to, like if it'd be a problem with people having to distance or wear masks or things like that. I also went to early vote and the place that I went, like they were all wearing masks and you were required to wear a mask. So I guess I was kind of concerned that people maybe wouldn't want to do that. But when I got there, it was fine. The guy who like checked us in, he was super excited that I was like an early voter. He kept like giving me thumbs up when he saw me walking around the like voting place. So that was perfectly fine. But the other thing that I guess concerned me is like you hear all these stories about people like getting purged from the voting rolls and like having issues at the polling place with like being able to vote. And actually, when I went to go vote, I went up to the like desk to check in or whatever, get my ballot, and they like couldn't find me. So I was standing there for a while, like I was like trying to tell them my name and she couldn't find me anywhere. And I was like, I know I'm registered. And so I guess that gave me a little bit of like nervousness. I was like, oh no, what if I'm not actually registered after all? But I was. She was just spelling my name wrong, so it was no problem. But yeah, I think that was really where my, I guess, anxiety came from, was I was just worried that there are gonna be so many like moving parts.
So I do want to ask everyone this, but I want to start with Brealyn and Chey. How do you feel about having a woman vice president? Like we're all women sitting here, so how does it make you feel? Does it make you nervous, anxious? Are you happy?
The minute I found out, I found out through Janiqua. She texted the group chat that we have with all our siblings, and she was like, "Oh my God, she was in AKA." And I was like, wow, okay, she's excited. And her excitement made me excited because I was like, we finally have an actual voice in one of the most powerful positions that you can have in this country. We have a voice that knows exactly what young girls have been through and wants to make our country better. So it made me very happy and very excited for the future.
And when I found out we had a woman vice president, it made me really excited because that's the first woman vice president, and she was a minority. So that just made it better.
I agree. I had the same reaction as Janiqua. I was also really emotional, not just thinking about the fact that I finally have someone who represents me in the White House, but that there's also little girls and boys who will be born over the next few years who don't know a world where there's not a woman in one of the highest positions of power in the United States. And I think that's a beautiful thing. And I think so many women had to sort of break glass ceilings upon glass ceilings to get to the point where she was able to become a vice president elect for this country. And I think that's amazing. And I feel proud as a Black woman. Like, I felt proud as a Black woman the day that she was elected. And then I also am glad that the Indian American population in America also is represented through her candidacy, and that's really important.
Yeah, totally agree with everything everyone has said. My initial reaction, I was super excited as well. I think, history is finally changing. We have never had, like everyone's been saying, a woman in any position of power, like in presidency or vice presidency. And, at first I almost was just like, wait, like what? It was almost like too good to be true almost. But then when the reality kind of sunk in, I was like, this is really cool, because there's so many things that we as women fight for that, it would be so beneficial to have someone who is a woman in that position of power. And now that we have that, it's such a huge step for us, not only as women, but as Americans as well. So I'm very excited for the future of our country. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I just want to add as well that I think something that I was also really excited about it, but I think that's something that I also was thinking about kind of was the fact that the vice president and the president, like they don't act as their own unit, but they actually like they appoint like countless of other positions of power that are also really important in our government. So I was really happy to see that she was in this position, because I would hope that she would use her power as like the first woman as a vice president and as a minority as well to kind of bring in diversity, more women and more people of color into these positions that they get to appoint, and hopefully kind of, I guess, diversify these kinds of positions of power.
So for me,
I just have like one more thing to add that I was thinking about while everybody was talking. Like, it just kept bringing up points. Like, we've been growing up with all these stories about women in power and them being heroines and taking charge of their own destiny, but like we've never actually seen it in the media. And to know that there's now a place and time where kids can grow up in the media and they can see this strong woman of power like fighting for them, it just makes me like so happy and so excited for everything, that there's going to be like these people, like these little tiny humans on the planet, just so happy and so excited to actually like grow up and be an adult, because they're like, I can do what she can do, you know?
yeah, off of what Chey is saying, like I don't have any little siblings, but I do have 4 nieces and nephews, and my nieces are 9, and they were very like involved with like, mommy went and voted. Like I was like, they texted me and I'm like, okay. Like, I mean, I didn't really think I could have that conversation with them, and like being able to like see their excitement and being able to know that like they see someone that looks more like them, like that they see someone like you said, Janae, that like I didn't even think about that like their kids are being born and all they're gonna know for those first few years of their life is a woman vice president, a woman vice president. So I think that is very like also very like it's monumental. It's kind of like, it's almost emotional sometimes. It's kind of, it's not always super exciting that it took this long, but we're here. Like we got here. Like we did this. She did this. Like, and then as I said earlier, like having that vote, like I kind of feel like I did this, or like I helped do this or something. With when you vote, I feel like you are able to feel like you did something. Like my voice was heard, even though it may have not gone the way that I wanted to or whatever, but like at least your voice was heard, and you did your part as an American and as like, a civilian. So our next topic, well, actually, I have a question from the audience. So the question is, did your parents influence your vote?
I'll start because I have a very politically involved household. I think actually, I think it's hard to separate your parents' influence on you because you grow up in a house where, you know, you all are taught, at least in my family, you're talking about political beliefs and such, but I do have differing political beliefs than my family. Going to school in California changes your beliefs about a lot of things. And so I definitely think I can lean towards one side more than my parents per se. So when I went to go vote, I was voting for my beliefs and the policies that I think should exist in America. But I definitely think that my parents, although we do watch the news together, always encouraged us to vote for what we believe in and to vote independently in that. So I think my parents voted as separate individuals, and I think my sister and I voted as separate individuals, but they just always encouraged us to vote no matter what, because that's really important. And I think what Bethany was saying earlier, I think I feel a particular weight as a Black woman of if I don't vote, then everything that those people did to fight for my right to vote would be in vain. So I carry that with me, and I think that's something that my family taught me as well.
Yeah, so I think I'm pretty much the same way. My family, I mean, I would say we're fairly involved in politics. I mean, it's not something that we talk about at the dinner table every night, but I mean, you know, we keep up to date with social events and things like that. But growing up, my parents were very much, you know, kind of like, believe what you need to, you know, that you're your own person, you know, we believe this, but that doesn't mean you have to. I do think that a good portion of my beliefs do line up with theirs because kind of what Janae was saying, you do grow up in a household with them and you're taught certain things and things like that. There are a few things that I differ on, but I think that's just generational. I think that the way they were raised and the time frame that they were raised in compared to where I was raised in and what we're experiencing now is kind of shaping my belief system off of theirs, if that makes sense. But yeah, same thing though. You know, as I was getting older and able to understand it, everything was don't vote for what you think we want to, vote for who you want to, just vote because it's important to our country that you vote one way or the other. Just vote how you want to, you know. So I mean, I guess in some ways yes, but also no. So I hope that answered it. But
Yeah, I think I agree that I think that me and my parents, we went to vote together, but I do think that we voted as individuals. I think that, and maybe they wouldn't agree, but in a way, maybe I kind of influenced their vote in the sense that because it was my first time voting, they really wanted to like I guess, emphasize the importance of voting in like your local elections and your state elections and like doing your research. So like my whole family was like doing research on all the candidates and like to model like, I guess, that good behavior, which I don't know if I mean, I'm sure that they did research in other elections as well, but I think that this year especially, like they were going above and beyond on their like voter efficacy to kind of show me how like it would go. But yeah, I think when it comes down to it, you vote for who it is that you believe in most. And I guess that sometimes can align with your parents because they did raise you and you kind of take in some of their beliefs, but sometimes it doesn't. And I think that the most important thing is just making sure that whatever you think is what's heard and what you put on the paper.
So I did want to piggyback off of something that Leah said, talking about, you know, that it's not something that you necessarily discuss at the dinner table all the time or whatever, but I do feel like this election was so in our faces. Like, I mean, it was like little kids knew what was going on. Like, it was so in our faces. I mean, from campaigning, like people campaigning on the sides of roads or bumper stickers, just flags, like it's different things that were just everywhere. And it's kind of like one of those things that you kind of had to ignore it. Like you had to purposely ignore it, if that makes sense. So I think it's very like, I had a conversation with my my coworker, and we were just talking, and like not going into details on like who we voted for or anything, but like as far as like, it was her first time voting, having that assurance, having that your own beliefs, and like not saying like, well, this is why I voted because my mom said so, or because my dad said so. But like, if you tell someone like I voted this way because this, no one can say anything to you. If you have that confidence. Now, if you don't have the confidence, that's you on your own, because someone could come for you. But once you have those, you have that knowledge, like this is what I like about this candidate, this is what I like, this is what I support, this is why I'm voting. Like, and you have that information, which keyword is knowing that, like that's the knowledge behind it, like Mikala mentioned, researching it. I think that's very, 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 very important for us to have our own views. And I think that our generation is really changing some stuff because we're so outspoken, and with social media, it's like, it's everyone's views are everywhere. So yeah, I just wanted to add that. I did want to ask, what is your hope for the community with these election votes? And I want to start with Brealyn.
I hope the community just accepts the fact, like whoever becomes president, just like they just accept like who it is. Like they just accept who it is and just go with it, I guess.
And Chey?
I just hope the community everywhere, people just learn to respect each other more and respect each other's beliefs and each other's thoughts. Even if you disagree with somebody, you shouldn't like get up in their face and yell at them. You should have a mature conversation and tell them why you think the way you think and hear why they think that they should think. Just like respect each other more.
And how do you feel that the country/state has handled the COVID-19 pandemic, especially recently with the spike of numbers?
I think they handle it pretty well because it came up all of a sudden. Like if a regular person was to be over what happened over this year, I don't think they'll be able to take it, because I know I wouldn't be able to take it. So they did pretty well keeping it kind of together.
I am glad that we have the mask mandate in North Carolina, and I've been thankful for that. The fact that it was implemented early on. I know that that was not a requirement in all states. So I'm glad that the governor implemented that. I don't think it was handled well on an organizational level for the United States. I think that we can look on a global scale and see the way that now Americans cannot travel different places, and other countries have been able to contain the virus, or at least prevent the curve from cases from rising to the point where hospitals are incredibly overwhelmed. But we've seen an incredible amount of Americans die, and I think that although people were going to die, it's a pandemic, I think that the lack of organization and leadership caused more deaths that then needed to happen. And I think that's really unfortunate. And I also don't think that it was handled well, mainly because I think that there's a political divide when it comes to the virus and science, and the virus should not involve politics at all. Like the debate about whether to wear a mask and stuff like that, it's just causing unnecessary deaths of people that we love, and I think that's tragic.
That's exactly what I was going to say, Janae. Politics and science should never mix, in my opinion, especially when it comes to people's actual lives. I think that a lot of the controversy over, like you said, wearing a mask, not wearing a mask, social distancing, not social distancing, quarantining, the list can go on and on and on. I think if we all had more of like a unity base, like, okay, we just want to get this done, we want to crush it and be over it, I think it would honestly, I hope anyways that it would be contained a little bit more. But I think because everything is so political right now, especially because COVID did happen on an election year, a very important election year, I think that it just kind of escalated both things. So, you know, people were comparing who was going to win the election with COVID, and COVID was going to end if this candidate won and keep going if this one did. And it really doesn't have anything to do with that. It's a sickness, you know, so I think that, and it's a pandemic that we need to get a handle on. So I think that we definitely need to try to separate the two, and just focus on like the scientific portion of the pandemic of COVID. So
I 100% agree with you too, especially because everything happened so suddenly. Like I remember we were just going home early from school because there was a storm, and next thing I know, we were at home for 2 weeks, and then 2 weeks turned into 3 months, and everything just happened so suddenly. People just don't know whether or not to believe it because there's always this just non-transparency whenever we talk about stuff in America. It's just always there. And I hope one day we can get rid of it and be more truthful with each other. But it's also going to take just a lot of work because sadly we are a divided country and we can't come together, especially when it means the most. And people are just trying to take sides when there's not really a side to take. It's just whether or not you're going to take the steps to be healthy.
I think that something that y'all all said about like the coronavirus not being political, like I tell people all the time, the coronavirus does not pick skin colors. It doesn't pick Democratic or Republican parties or genders or ages. It doesn't pick who. It doesn't say like, oh, we're only going to affect these amount of people or these people are going to. So I feel like as a whole, it all should have been treated as such because there was no one was immune. There was no one that was not about to could not be hurt by this virus or known someone that was hurt by this virus, like Black or white or Hispanic. Like it doesn't matter. It's a virus. A virus doesn't have the brain cells to say I'm going to get this person next and this person next. It's all about how we as carriers, potential carriers, handled it. And I do want to ask if anyone had any final thoughts or hopes moving forward, not just about the coronavirus, about, how maybe your life has changed as far as with the coronavirus and virtual learning, or just anything that you want to say to the audience.
One thing that I don't think we got to touch on due to time was the article published, I think, by a local news source saying that 50% of students are not passing. I think when we look at marginalized communities and the effect that this year has had on them as a whole, my hopes for the community in the future, not only on the community, but the national level, is that we really rigorously implement policies to help these communities get to equal playing field, because they've really been set back this year. And I think we need to take these things seriously. When we hear a metric like that, it's going to have implications in young people's lives for a very long time. As someone in education, when someone is not passing on a 3rd or 4th grade level due to percentages and fractions, those things multiply and amplify to the point where we're getting poor SAT and ACT scores. And then that has a direct correlation onto colleges and your success after college. And so I really think we have to take these metrics that we're seeing appear in communities of color due to COVID and the economic loss that's occurred this year seriously. That's my biggest hope, is that we can unite as a country and stop looking at things as fake news, but actually face the reality of some of the effects that this terrible year has had on people who need the most help.
Yeah, I think to add, I guess my hope has more to do with this concept of voting and being politically active. I think that we're kind of like, everyone was like, whoo, like it's over. Like we voted in the election and like things are done, but things are definitely not over. And I really guess my hope for the community is that we really take that energy that we put into getting people out to vote and educating people on what was going on, that we continue that energy into the future and into these next 4 years, because you can't just sit and say, well, we voted for the president or we voted for our local elections and now we're done. Like there's still more things that we need our energy and need our time and that are a part of our civic engagement. For example, like redistricting is coming up. If you don't know what redistricting is, definitely look it up. But that's something that's coming up and that also affects your ability to vote. There's lots of things that are out there that we still need to pay attention to and still keep our minds on. So I just hope that people kind of keep that same energy going as time goes on.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, my one of my biggest hopes for our community as well as our entire country is just to create more unity. I feel like this year as a whole has just been so divided amongst a crazy amount of things. Politics, the virus, just to name, the few hot topics that we've been talking about tonight. But I just feel like nothing major will ever get done in a positive light if we are so divided all the time. And I know that our country has been divided politically with Democrats and Republican parties since, the beginning, but it's never been to this point, I don't think, with such hatred towards the opposite party of whichever one you're affiliated with. And so I think that just bringing back some like humility amongst everyone and, being able to sit with someone who's different than you and say, hey, here's our differences, but I still want to shake your hand and go to grab coffee with you or whatever. I think that we're missing that piece of humanity. And I think that we need to try to get our way back towards it, because if we don't, we're never going to be able to solve any of these monstrous problems that we're dealing with, because it takes all of us, not just one party. Or one side or whatever of whatever we're talking about, the pandemic or politics or whatever. So that's my hope. I really hope that our community and country can really start to enforce more unity throughout.
Brealyn, do you have any hopes or thoughts?
I hope that the school system realizes that, because I heard that they were supposed to be trying to do more virtual learning, and I hope they realize that it's not the best idea to do, because most kids think it's an option to not go to school or to go to school, because sometimes I think that. So I just think it's just best for us to just stay in person.
Chey?
My hope is that we just continue to realize that everything that's happening is happening in time, and that we have to deal with it like right now, right here, because it's not going anywhere. And I hope that we just continue to keep being kind to our neighbors and to the people that need it, because you never know, you could be driving down the street one day and there will be this lady in a hoodie, and your one smile at her will get her through the next 3 days off of nothing, because people feed off each other's energy, people feed off each other's just state of mind. That's how we were created as a human race, to really just lean on each other. And I hope we just continue to do that, because this is definitely the time to just commune with your neighbor and get through everything that's been tough so far.
So my hope would be to just live in a better world. I want to get married in a better world. I want to have my children in a better world. I want them to have to grow up like not dealing with some of the things that we've seen like so in our faces, as far as like, I think that I just hope that people listen. I feel like no one's always going to agree. That's just how we are. We're not set up as humans to all be on the same accord, but that we do have the option to listen and hear and respect people's opinions and what they think, because I think that's very valuable for you to be able to, like, for us all not to, let's say, agree on one particular thing. Like, one thing, I don't like chocolate. Y'all might not agree with that, but I can't say like, you're crazy because you like chocolate. No, you like, I don't like chocolate, so that's the law. When like you take that and take it at face value and like, okay, she doesn't like chocolate, that's fine. I like chocolate. We're gonna go past our differences and go get ice cream. She may get chocolate ice cream. I may get strawberry. Like, I just feel like it's just being able to have those conversations, and like this conversation now, as far as just being able to talk and being able to start this conversation. So I really do appreciate everyone for being here tonight. And you can go ahead, Janae.
One final thing that I wanted to say that came up for me, in addition to my hopes for the future, is that I hope that individuals, like Mikala was saying, I think the true mark of a really great politically active and community active citizen is someone not only who's voting in the national election, but local and state elections, and most importantly, continuing to be an activist in their communities and contributing to community organizations like the YWCA. They didn't pay me to say that, but they do such great work in the community, and other community organizations in Wilmington and North Carolina. These are often the organizations that are helping the disadvantaged individuals in our communities, and pushing forward change when our state and national politicians are gridlocked. And so I really think that we need to continue to contribute to our communities. That's part of being politically active, even not during an election year. And so I hope that that's something we can do in 2021 and moving forward.
Great. I do want to thank everyone for joining us. We would like to thank Ms. Velva Jenkins, our CEO at YWCA Lower Cape Fear, Mrs. Grace and Ms. Janiqua helping in the background, and these wonderful panelists, Mikala, Chey, Brealyn, Leah, and Janae. And I hope that everyone has a happy and safe holiday. Join us in January 2021's Talk on Race, which is going to be on the topic mental health. So good night. Thanks for coming. Hope everyone is well and safe and has a great night.